So, Maura Murray was a 21-year-old college student who, at the time of her disappearance, was attending UMass Amherst. Previously, before attending UMass, Maura had attended West Point, which, if you guys don't know, is like a military college academy. I'm not really sure, but she was a cadet there. After a few semesters, Maura actually ended up getting charged with like petty theft, I believe, because she was using stolen credit cards to purchase food for herself. After it going like through, whatever system they had, they decided that after 3 months, if she just exhibited good behavior and didn't get into any more trouble, they would just drop the charges. Maura had a fiance whose name was Bill Rausch, I believe that's how you pronounce it, and he was a lieutenant in a branch of the military. I'm not really sure which one, but he was a lieutenant. After Maura's apartment was searched after she disappeared, or her dorm, I should say, was searched after she disappeared, they found a printed out email between her and Bill showing that things had not really been going that great in the relationship. Maybe they were heading towards a breakup. It also seemed like Bill was very like controlling and very possessive over Maura. These are just the reports. No one knows if that's true or not, but this is important to the case, and Bill does come up later in the story. So, Maura had a job on campus as campus security, and one night, while on her shift, she received a call from her older sister, Kathleen. It seemed like Kathleen had also been having problems with her fiance and called Maura to speak about it. So after hanging up, Maura's supervisor just happened to come by her desk and, probably asked her a question. I'm not really sure from what I've read, but asked her a question and said that Maura just broke down in tears, just started crying, was inconsolable. And when her supervisor asked her, what's wrong, all she could say was her sister. It wasn't revealed until about 13 years later what the conversation between Maura and her sister was. And apparently, Kathleen told, the media in October of 2017 that she was an alcoholic at the time of Maura's disappearance and that she had just left a rehab facility that day and her fiance was taking her to a liquor store. So, this easily, could have put a lot of stress on Maura. So, fast forward to February 7th, 2 days before Maura's disappearance, her dad comes into town in Amherst and to spend some time with her and go car shopping. So after they were done, hanging out for the day, apparently she and her dad were going to stay in a motel room together, but Maura wanted to go to a party, so she borrowed her dad's car to drive it to the back to the dorms and then planned on coming back after the party was over. Maura borrows her dad's Corolla and decides to go to the party. And she stays there for a while. On the way home, she strikes a guardrail and causes a lot of damage to her dad's car, about $10,000 worth, which is in 2004 money, so it's probably worth way more if you think about it in today's money. The officer on the scene apparently did not conduct a sobriety test, so who really knows if she had been drinking or whatever, but the point is she crashed her dad's car. After everything, Maura's dad drops her back at campus and says he'll call her later to talk about, insurance and what's going to have to be done in order to fix the car. Well, fast forward to February 9th, Maura decides to send her boyfriend a really sweet and heartfelt email, it seems like, where she says that she loves him, but she just doesn't really feel like talking to anybody at the moment, which is like understandable, especially with everything that had been going on in her life. It seemed like she was probably pretty stressed out. Call logs for Maura show that after she had finished talking to her boyfriend, she had made a few phone calls to other places, one of which was about renting a condo in an area that she and her family had gone to on vacation while she was growing up. Later that afternoon, Maura emails her supervisor and her professors saying that she will not be at work or in class for the next week and that she has to leave because there's been a death in her family. But according to her family, there was no death, there was nothing even remotely similar to that. So obviously, Maura probably just wanted to get away from everything that was going on. Maura packs all of her essentials in her car and then stops at the ATM at her bank and withdraws $280. She was also seen on CCTV footage buying $40 worth of alcohol at the liquor store. At 3:30, she's seen leaving campus. All classes had been canceled that day due to a snowstorm, so that makes it even stranger because why would somebody head out? I guess maybe it may have not been snowing in New Hampshire or wherever she happened to be heading, but more than likely, it just seems like it wouldn't be a good idea to go out on the road at a time like that. Around 7 p.m., a woman hears a noise outside of her house. The accident occurred along Route 112 in Haverhill, New Hampshire, I believe. And the woman who had heard the thump and saw Moore's car up on the snowbank had actually called the police and said that she had seen a man sitting in the car smoking a cigarette. But later on, she changed her story and said that no, she didn't see a man. She saw a woman sitting in the car. But to me, it just doesn't make any sense because why would you change your story? Why would you go back on that? A resident of the area, whose name was Butch Atwood, happened to be driving along on the way back home when he came across the scene. Now, Butch was a school bus driver, so he was driving his bus and came across Maura and was like, hey, do you need any help? I can call the police for you. But Maura Butch says that Maura insisted that she had already called AAA, that they were coming, and she begged him not to call the police. Probably because she was afraid she was going to get in trouble because she had already crashed her dad's car. And, this is a second accident, so she just knows that it's probably not gonna, really work out all that well for her. Now, Butch knew that Maura was lying because being a resident of the area, he knew that this area had no cell service, so she wouldn't have been able to call the police. So he told Maura he was gonna go home and call the police anyways. So here's where the story starts to get like really complicated and things are starting to be called into question about the legitimacy of what happened that night with Maura. So a third woman happens to be driving by the scene and she sees a police SUV parked in front of Maura's car, like the front of the car, the nose of the car to the other nose of the car. And she calls the police and, reports that, she had seen that there was nobody hanging around the car, so she just wanted to let them know. Police say that nobody on the police force responded to the call made by the third witness until 9 minutes after her call came in. So, whose car was parked in front of Maura's? Maura's car was super damaged, obviously, and it couldn't be driven. And police had searched her car and noticed that the only things missing were her debit card, her credit cards, and her phone. Police labeled this a missing persons case because they figured she took all her stuff, maybe she wanted to run away and do whatever, but of course her family was not convinced that Maura would just up and leave them like that without saying anything. And around 8:30 that same night, a driver driving down Route 112 said that he saw a young woman walking hurriedly down the side of the road, and he only discovered that the woman he had saw had been Maura because 3 months later, when he was checking his work records, he realized he had confused the dates, and that the night he saw her was actually the night that Maura disappeared. The next day, the police release a "be on the lookout" alert for Maura, and of course, the investigation goes on. Her family comes in to see if they could, help the investigation. They have 100 searchers looking for Maura all around. Eventually, 10 days after Maura goes missing, the FBI actually joins the investigation. Maura's boyfriend had taken a flight back home to Massachusetts. When he said that, obviously on the flight, he had to turn off his cell phone, and he received a call while on the flight with Maura's voice saying that she had been sobbing and was inconsolable on the other end. And when they traced the call had been traced back to the American Red Cross. So the investigators were hoping to find anything relating to Maura anywhere on Route 112. The backpack that she had for school, maybe her credit cards, anything, any evidence at all that she had been there, but they didn't find anything. She had just literally vanished and taken everything that she wanted to with her. Here's where this case gets even creepier. So, in 2004, a man had allegedly, given Maura's father, Fred, that had belonged to his brother. So, the man, for some reason, had suspected his brother may have been involved in Maura's disappearance. And that's because right after Maura had disappeared, he claimed that his brother started acting weird, that him and his girlfriend were acting off and strange, and that a couple days after Maura disappeared, they had gotten rid of their Volvo car and decided to just leave the state and move out. Now, let's dive into theories about what could have potentially happened to Maura on the night of her disappearance. Well, the first theory is that after Butch Atwood told Maura he was going to call the police, Maura got scared because she knew that she would definitely probably be in some sort of legal trouble this time around, and she decided to take all her stuff and make a run for it before the police came to the scene. This time around, Maura probably knew that more than likely she was definitely going to get into some sort of legal trouble this time, and instead of waiting for the police to arrive, she may have decided to grab her necessary items, so like her cards and whatnot, and run off into the woods. And she could have hid in the woods, watching to see if the police would just drive off and forget about it. Or she could have, decided to completely take off, which would explain why the person who called said that he saw a young woman walking down the road so late at night. This could be like a separate theory, but I think it's related to this first one. If Maura had been drinking, enough to where she crashed her car, she really could have taken off with all of her stuff, thinking that she could hide out in the woods, and had probably could have fallen asleep somewhere out there. And it was super cold in New Hampshire. Like I said, it was February and there was a snowstorm coming, so she could have found somewhere to kind of like hide out for a while until everything cleared up, but eventually fell asleep and succumbed to the elements while she was out there. To me, this sounds like the most plausible theory. However, it is still strange how the woman who called originally on Maura crashing her car said that she saw a man sitting in the car smoking a cigarette. The second theory is that Maura was the victim of a crime of opportunity. A couple months after Maura went missing, another girl in the about 60 miles near Haverhill had also gone missing, but the police ruled out the cases being connected or it being linked to a serial killer, so that is actually debatable. But this does call into question if there really had been somebody who was, watching Maura, following her along the road, and that would explain who the woman who had originally called in had seen sitting in Maura's car. Just came along her while they happened to be driving along and saw a young woman outside by herself without a car in need of help. This theory would also explain the man who was mentioned earlier that had told police that his brother and his girlfriend had been acting weird after the whole disappearance of Maura. Theory 3 is very interesting, and I didn't even think about this until I started reading the comments under a video about Maura, and that is that Butch Atwood was the reason that Maura disappeared. I saw some really good points brought up about how the police kind of just relied or just trusted Butch's story. The police work was kind of sloppy on this case, so nobody knows if they even, checked the bus that Butch was driving to see if maybe Maura was hiding there. Someone brought up a good point that maybe Butch could have felt sorry for Maura and decided he was going to help her out and told her to, kind of stay in the bus while the police came. And he said he would call them anyways. And, he could have let her go afterwards, or he could have been the one who ended her life. Who really knows? But I didn't even consider that until I started reading through the comments. And there was also some credibility issues with Butch that I couldn't really find any information on. But it is a very interesting theory. He is technically kind of the last person to have spoken to her. Also, because like I mentioned, Butch was a resident of the area, he knew that there was no cell service out there, so Maura was basically just like a sitting duck. I saw theories about how Maura could have been walking along the woods and had fallen into like a covered over like ice pond or iced over pond or anything like that. And the police did not find anything that she had taken with her. They didn't find her debit card. They didn't find her backpack that she had taken. So it would make sense. I mean, if she fell into the water, then her stuff may have sunk to the bottom. The fourth theory is that Maura had just had enough of everything on with her sister and her family problems and her fiance, and she decided to just up and leave and, leave everything behind, make it seem like she had gone missing, and just start a new life somewhere else. This theory doesn't really make any sense to me because one, why ruin her only form of transportation getting to her new life? Two, they said that Maura had done her homework before she had left for New Hampshire. So I don't really think somebody's gonna do their homework if they're gonna just leave and start a whole new life and only take out a small amount of money out of their bank account. So to me, this doesn't really make any sense. Here's a bonus theory that I saw mentioned in a video about Maura that I didn't really see mentioned anywhere else, and that is relating to the black SUV, police SUV that I had mentioned at the beginning of the video. The theory is that Maura was accidentally hit and killed by the chief of police of Haverhill. The chief at the time happened to have a drinking problem that was pretty well known amongst the crew working there, and that he actually drove a black SUV as his police car when he was out, patrolling. Maura could have gotten out of her car to assess the damage and see if her car was still drivable. And at the same time, the chief of police could have been coming around the corner in his SUV and had not seen Maura, whether it was because he just didn't see her or if he had also been drinking that night. He could have accidentally hit and killed her, and in order to avoid a scandal, going to jail, and a bunch of other things, he decided to cover up the crime. This gives credit to the theory made by the witness who said that they had seen a black police SUV parked nose to nose with Maura's car. So kind of calls into question the timeline about when the original witness, the woman, had made a call to the police department after seeing the accident with Maura, and the police claim that there was nobody sent out to the scene until 9 minutes after that call had came in. All in all, this is like a really tragic case. Maura's family still holds out hope that maybe one day she'll come home, that maybe she just decided she wanted to start a new life and get away from what was going on with her at the time. I almost forgot to record an outro, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys like this video, please be sure to subscribe and follow me on Insta, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!